UFOs and Tiny Creatures in Malaysia by Charles Lear. According to an article headlined Humanoid Encounters in Malaysia, written by West Malaysia MUFON representative Ahmad Jamaluddin and published in the November 1979 MUFON UFO Journal, in 1970, 4 boys in Johari Bahru told their headmaster that while on their way to school they saw some 6-inch creatures and a small UFO. News got around school and a search ensued. The only thing found to possibly back up the boys' story was a burnt patch on the ground, but this report was the first of several throughout the decade of small UFOs and associated creatures ranging from 3 inches to 6 inches. Jamaluddin lists 7 cases along with their dates, localities, and descriptions. He makes note of the fact that 5 of the reports came from school children, in which the encounters were said to have taken place on school premises. According to him, the creatures were described as wearing one-piece suits and being equipped with a type of ray gun. Some had large heads and round eyes, and some of the 3-inch creatures had antennas. He mentions that there were 3 more probable encounters with tiny humanoids, but unfortunately the origins of the incidents cannot be traced. With that in mind, it should be noted that Jamaluddin fails to cite any of his sources or give any of the witnesses' names. In the article, Many Entities at Kuantan Air Base, published in the January 1981 Flying Saucer Review, Volume 26, Number 5, Jamaluddin describes a report that, in 1975 or 1976, a UFO and a tiny entity landed at the Royal Malaysian Air Force Base. This time he does cite a newspaper as a source and includes the names of witnesses. According to him, a friend of his sent him a report that was on the front page of the New Straits Times. Unfortunately, the date was missing, and there was no mention of a UFO in the newspaper article. He wrote that he tried to contact the reporter who wrote the story, but unfortunately he resigned a few years ago and is now working somewhere in the government departments. According to the article headlined, Believe It or Not, 9-year-old Paul Lazario, a student at the RMAF primary school, said he saw a 3-inch creature drinking from a drain. He said he caught it and that it managed to escape and run into some undergrowth. He described it as brown and looking like a man. He said it held a steel-like rod in its hand, had feelers on its head, and a pistol hanging from its waist. Lazario said he told his friends, and that he and 2 others went back in the evening, and 12-year-old Neo Lee An told the reporter that all 3 saw the creature before it ran back into the undergrowth. A teacher at the school, Mr. Yu Kim Kwan, said that he went to investigate, and while he didn't see the creature, he did find a partly crushed, red Indian-like wigwam beautifully weaved out of grass. In his comments, Jamaluddin notes that, up to that point, there were no humanoid reports in Malaysia where the entities were taller than 6 inches. He wrote that he had documented 24 reports and that 90% of those came from children and only 50% involved UFOs. In his article, yet once again, Reports of Tiny Alien Entities in Malaysia, published in the winter 1993 Flying Saucer Review, Volume 38, Number 4, Jamaluddin manages to provide the reader with his sources and includes the dates of the reported encounters and the names of the witnesses. The article starts off this way. A flying saucer believed to be from an alien planet was seen to land at Kampang Parit Rambai at Pontian several nights ago and caused a commotion amongst the inhabitants and has been the main topic of discussion there. It is described as having been about the size of a volleyball and to have landed near a group of drummers, causing them to stop playing. One of the drummers, Haji Yahya Hashim, said he saw a bright light, and then, several minutes later, the saucer landed near them. It is reported that before anyone could get a closer look at it, the object took off. The second report is from the newspaper Berita Harian, headlined People's Claim Encounter with Tiny Entities, published May 15, 1991. The article reports that several students from the Sultan Suleiman Primary School claim to have had encounters on school premises on May 12th and 13th with a group of tiny people. This is said to have caused much excitement at the school when the students told of their encounters during their 3 p.m. recess on the days in question. 8-year-old Mohammed Izayinuri Nur Zaidi claimed that when he tried to catch one of the creatures, it stabbed his hand, and he showed a small bruise on his left hand to school authorities as proof. He said that when he was playing with his fellow students, he saw hundreds of tiny people coming out of a hole near the drain of a housing estate. He said they were dressed in red, that he could see their faces, and that they were about 6 centimeters tall. 8-year-old Hafisa Zakaria claimed to have seen tiny people near a drain the previous day and took her teacher to the spot to point it out. Another girl, 10-year-old Yasmin Hadia Yiori, also claimed to have seen little creatures. Flying Saucer Review editor Gordon Creighton comments on the reports Jamaluddin had sent them throughout the years and cautions, "We have absolutely got to accept the whole thing with the greatest reserve." However, he wrote that he refused to dismiss the reports, given that he had spent many years as a researcher, working and residing or traveling on 5 continents, seeking out, and what is more, listening carefully to, such individuals, always adults, who had these strange tales to tell. He is referring here to fairy lore, and fairies remain a possible explanation for some humanoid reports to researchers such as Josh Cutchin, who has studied fairy lore extensively.